Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Black Moon Lilith Rising podcast. I'm your host, Adama, and I'm so thrilled to have Stephanie Campos, author, psychic, witch, and just an extraordinary human being on the podcast today. And she's back again. We had Stephanie on. You may recognize her from earlier episodes. And I'm so excited for you to be here.
Thank you so much for having me. I am thrilled to be back.
Yeah, thanks so much. So, Stephanie Campos is an astrologer, psychic medium, author, and witch, as I said. She studied the mystical arts for over a decade, including the stars, mediumship, palm reading, tarot, curanderismo, and more. She is passionate about being of service, helping others heal, and using astrology as a tool for transformation. Her work has also appeared in Cosmopolitan, Refinery 29, Well and Good, and Bustle, among other publications. She has appeared on The Today Show as an astrology expert and modern mystic, and has a monthly horoscope segment on NBC's California Live. So impressive, Steph.
Oh, thank you so much.
So, your new book that just came out, it was the day after my birthday, November 14th
Mm-hmm.
this year.
Mm-hmm.
2023 Seasons of the Zodiac, Love, Magic, and Manifestation throughout the astrological year. And this was my pool reading for the past few weeks. And I found it so inspiring and really helpful in terms of using the Zodiac seasons magically to manifest and to really empower yourself. And so we're going to infuse a little bit of that into today's podcast episode.
So excited. There's so much going on in 2024.
Yes. So, for all of you listening, I'm sure you know we are going to talk about top level the important astrological events and planetary transits of 2024. Talk a little bit about history, talk a little bit about the cycles, and just give you guys a little bit of a preparedness guide to get you ready for what seems to be like a very eventful year, to say the least.
Absolutely.
So, let's actually let's just get right into it.
Yeah.
Because this first event that is happening next year, we've got Pluto in Aquarius moving on January 20th. And we are going to have a little bit of Pluto's move back into Pluto in Capricorn, but this is really a 20-year transit that we're entering into.
This is a huge one. First time in our lifetimes. No one on earth has experienced this.
That's wild. It's really wild to think about. So I'm actually going to, for anyone that is watching the video episode, and if you are watching the video episodes, you can find that or need to watch them. You can find them on Spotify and YouTube. So the first thing that really pops off the page to me with this particular month is the sun is right on top of Pluto.
Yes, that is what pops out to me as well. I think anytime one of the personal planets that's closer to Earth connects with an outer planet, it brings the energy down to us in a more intense and profound way. So it's really telling that the second Pluto goes into Aquarius, the sun is tracing over the steps and really amplifying and illuminating what themes may be coming up for us over this 20-year transit.
Yes, it's going to be quite the Aquarius season, honestly,
Yeah.
as we start off the year. And we're also coming out of the Mercury retrograde that just started in the sign of Capricorn. And right now, Mercury, we're filming this on December 15th, 2023. Mercury is also we're in the same sign as Pluto.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you want to give a little bit of context in terms of Aquarius as a zodiac sign, the Saturn ruled signs? Capricorn's also a Saturn ruled sign.
Mm-hmm.
What do you expect, like globally, or not even just globally, but overall in general? What can people expect in January as we start off the year?
Well, I think with this transit overall, it's really important, like you mentioned, to highlight the history and like what happened last time Pluto was in Aquarius. So the last time Pluto had a full tour through the sign of Aquarius was 1778. And for that trip through the sign of Aquarius, we had the Haitian and French revolutions, the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, the discovery of the planet Uranus, the first successful vaccine, and the American Revolution. And then when you break down the archetypes of Aquarius and Pluto, Aquarius is a zodiac sign that is concerned with humanity, community, technology, innovation, but also what lies on the margins of both society and the universe. So that's kind of where you get space exploration as well, and where you also get the revolutions of people saying, hey, this isn't working, this is unjust. We've been forgotten about by society. And Pluto is a planet of crisis, catharsis, transformation, and ultimately rebirth and power. So you can kind of already see, just based on those two archetypes, how they fold into all of the past events that kind of came up the last time Pluto was in Aquarius. So I don't think on January 20th, we're going to find a new planet and we're going to get some kind of new crazy cure for cancer, or, I don't think it's going to be like on the 20th, but I think this is the beginning of a 20-year cycle that is going to bring rapid medical and technological advancements, discoveries, and the breakdown of systems and structures of power that are ultimately oppressive and unjust for the people. So we definitely will have to keep an eye on it because it's going to be so noticeable. The last time that Pluto, we had a preview of this earlier in 2023 from March through June. And we saw like instant uptick in conversations around AI with like Chat GPT. So I think we'll also see themes related to data privacy, big tech, the underbelly of big tech come through as well.
100,000%. I couldn't agree more. And another big historical event around the same time that you described was also the Industrial Revolution was really revving up in the UK. And we all know that the UK has been, and still we're all of us colonial subjects
Yeah.
have been reeling from the effects of that, but they were a huge colonial power and decimating the world and really committing a lot of the atrocities that we are still trying to come back from in modern society. So that time, I think that last time Pluto was in Aquarius set the stage for now, I think this new cycle as well, because the Industrial Revolution really that's what set the stage for the type of work culture that we have
Mhm.
in colonial countries. Like, I mean, we can speak to this personally as Americans that grew up here and born here, but it's really like, yeah, it's about the grind. I mean, discounting Europe, I know everyone jokes about how like Europeans get like 6 months off, but
Mhm.
we do. What's time off when it
Yeah.
comes to being an American? Free healthcare, what's that? Programs, policies that need to be put in place to help people. I mean, quite literally in New York City, where I lived for a very long time, they had an apartment building collapse in the Bronx, or a portion of it
Mhm.
collapse. And meanwhile, most of the money is getting shoveled into God knows what. I mean, the
Mhm.
mayor is being looked into, the FBI is looking into him. So it's like all of these power structures, especially patriarchal power structures, are now being looked into. P. Diddy is another one it's still
Mm.
a New York mainstay
Mhm.
that's being looked into. And I'm mentioning New York because that's a big power in this country and in the world, and a big source of industry. And a lot of these patriarchal structures that are there are now going to be questioned, but that's going to ramp up.
Absolutely. And I think it would be so remiss to not name that we are in the United States' Pluto return right now. And we will have the final pass later this fall when Pluto trickles backwards into Capricorn for the final time in our lifetimes. Pluto's been here since 2008. Every country, event, business also has a birth chart for any astro newbies out there that are wondering. And when the United States was um, colonized, founded, it had Pluto in the sign of Capricorn at 28 degrees. So I think Capricorn is a zodiac sign. Its archetype is associated with history, structures, systems, legacy. And Pluto reveals the taboo, the unspoken. And so right now we're really confronting those shadows and those themes. And once Pluto shifts into Aquarius, it's kind of like the next chapter. Okay, we're all privy to this information, or more of us are waking up to it and being willing to talk about it and discuss it and want change. What does that look like?
And I think a lot of people also, they're not as afraid, because I think another big part of Capricorn and this Pluto and Capricorn period is Capricorn rules over patriarchal authority, dominance, control. When we think of Saturn, rules actually both Capricorn, ancient ruler of Aquarius. Saturn was Kronos, who ate his children because he was too afraid of them gaining power. And instead of working with them and championing them and being like, okay, this is my legacy. Let's all be fruitful. Let's all use our own strengths to raise ourselves up. I'm going to kill you and I'm going to dominate you and I'm going to suck all the power from you. And oh, you're better than me. Well, I'm going to use all the resources that I have to squash you. And that has been going on for hundreds of years. We can also take slavery was a big part of this Pluto and Aquarius story back then. It had been going on for hundreds of years in the 1700s already, but that was it ramped up a bit to fuel the industries that we know today and to start this country before the Civil War began and they were quote unquote freed. But now again, it's like when we fast forward to today, it's like, okay, yeah, there is actually modern day slavery going on across the world. But when we just take a look at, there's no similar in chains being ripped from Africa type of situation going on. Now it's all of us are being oppressed in various different ways, different levels of oppression. And now it's like the people against these structures versus straight up enslaved Africans against white old man slave owners. So it's like it's kind of like similar roles, but it's more of an updated, modernized global version of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to see some profound shifts.
Yes. And this is until around 2044, 2043-ish, because Pluto retrogrades, it goes back and then moves forward, and it goes back before it actually moves full time into the sign. Do you want to just comment on which zodiac sign placements? So sun, moon, rising,
Mm.
this will affect the most?
Yes. If you have your sun, moon, or rising in Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, or Aquarius, especially between 0 and 4 degrees, any placements, even if it's your rising sign or your midheaven, this is going to impact you the most intensely. Pluto only moves a couple degrees a year. So that's why it's a 20-year long transit. And it will have the effect in the most major areas of your life. So, personal relationships, your relationship with yourself, your authenticity, your own power, your career, the legacy you want to leave behind, your home, your living situation, generational patterns, clearing out karma and doing profound shadow work and healing work. So, it can be a really intense time for you to grapple with your relationship with power, control, jealousy, obsessions and fixations. But ultimately, all Pluto wants you to do is to surrender, to realize that control is an illusion, it is a waste of time. And once you kind of surrender to the undertow of Pluto, it's like when you get pulled into the ocean by a riptide. If you fight it, you usually have some trouble or maybe you drown. But if you ease into it and surrender, that's actually how you get out of a riptide. It's similar with Pluto. And Pluto also means riches. So when
Mm.
you learn to work with Pluto, you can actually become it's alchemy, it's you can be incredibly empowered, influential, magnetic, and kind of like a phoenix, just continue to evolve into new versions of yourself.
I know that to be true. That said, actually, a question popped into my head. What about advice for millennials? Because we all have Pluto in Scorpio, and
Mm,
it's going to be square, especially for the early degree, those who are like, what is it, like early 80s?
yeah.
Yeah, help us.
Ooh, a Pluto square. I've never lived through a Pluto square, so I don't know. Mine's coming up. Um,
Gen X, y'all are out. What is it? Gen X and is there one in between? It's like Pluto and Libra is the Gen
yeah.
X folks. So y'all been going through your Pluto square with Pluto and Capricorn. So you guys can let us know in the comments.
I imagine that it's going to be a time of confronting everything you've been avoiding, your fears, taboo topics. But that's not for the faint of heart and
It is
easier said than done.
It is. And I think also our generation, millennials in general, with that placement, we're really here to break the generational curses and patterns in our family. And I think that that's if there's some unfinished business
Mhm.
in look at where you have Pluto and Scorpio. I think we're both fourth housers, right?
Yes.
Yeah, lots of fun, right?
Mhm.
Take a look at that and whatever house it's in, and that will kind of tell you where some of the shadows are gonna pop out.
Absolutely.
If it's in your first house, yeah.
And pay attention to where Aquarius is in your chart. So Aquarius and Scorpio, and then tie those themes together because that's going to be a big part of
God.
your Pluto story.
Not to be all dramatic, I am a Leo moon, but everyone, this is a very major transit. So,
Yeah. And it's how we start the year off. Cute.
yeah, really cute. And this is why it's astrologers. I feel like I say this ad nauseum. I'm sure you've said it, along with seasons of the Zodiac. I'm sure this isn't the real new year.
Right.
So, this is a Gregorian calendar created by men. And basically, the real new year is Aries season. We're in the middle of a Mercury retrograde. I think Mercury's going to be direct, but it's going to be in shadow. This isn't,
Until this day.
yeah.
Yeah.
So this isn't the time to go guns blazing, starting something new, setting intentions, going off on, this is the real time to look inward. I think this is going to be a big shadow work month
Yes.
for
Yes.
everyone because of
And
that.
yeah, exactly. Don't hold it against yourself if you're not able to stick with your resolutions, or this is, like you said, going to be a very reflective, internal, probably triggering, but cathartic month.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that said, not like it's getting any easier here, but we're going to talk about the Libra eclipse. I'm going to pull that up on the charts for everyone that's watching. In It's a lunar penumbral eclipse in Libra on March 25th, and we've got the moon. I mean, that is quite literally the definition of an eclipse, less than 10 degrees from the nodes of the moon. We've got the moon in Libra with the south node, and that's really what jumps out to me the most with this lunar eclipse. But what's your commentary on this upcoming event?
So lunar eclipses are times of transition, release, surrender, and endings. It's a south node eclipse, which is also going to amplify those themes of letting go and loss and release. Libra is a sign that's associated with our partnerships, our agreements, justice, what's fair. What I will say about this eclipse that I like is that the ruler of the eclipse is Venus in Pisces. And Pisces is when Venus is in Pisces, it's in a very strong position. So I like that the planet that the moon is answering to is making some sweet connections with Jupiter, with Uranus, some supportive connections. That feels like support, innovation. Maybe there's some sort of loss or shift or change within a contract, an agreement, or even a relationship that you've outgrown. But there is this encouraging feeling at the same time that you're ready to move differently in a new direction.
Yeah, I would, I concur with that. And the one thing that does pop also out to me with the moon south node is, and then Venus being in Pisces, is we do have hugging close by
Mhm.
Saturn and Neptune.
Yeah.
So this does give, it's like, it's creative, and it's about breaking the boundaries of reality. But I also do see that, yeah, it can be, there's some loss involved in it. So it's like
Mhm.
obtaining or moving past some boundary, especially creatively or collaboratively, relationship wise, but it's not going to feel nice, it's
Yeah.
the loss as well.
And usually when you want to co-create something or call something into your life, you have to release. Purging, letting go, clearing out space is the first step to create new space for ideas and inspiration and aligned connections to find you. So it is going to be kind of like that double-edged sword.
Yeah. And it's also, so we have on the opposite end as well, we've got the sun in Aries, it's a lunar eclipse, and we've got North Node, Chiron, and Mercury. And to me, that also is like on the other side of letting go of that codependency or that old bond or that old collaboration, is also stepping into your truth and into yourself and the discomfort that can go along with that. And also kind of taking the reins on the pain that you may have allowed to stop you before.
Mm,
Especially if you are, it's like, I think it's like you'd be in your late 40s to mid 50s right now if you're going through Chiron return.
mm.
Chiron was in Aries, just looking at that transit as well. So it's like you're going to really be dealing with childhood wounds as well, and not like whether it would be bullying or people not accepting you for who you were. I think that's really all going to come to the surface, and you're kind of really going to aggressively step into yourself. That kind of screams to me as
Yeah.
well.
I love that. Absolutely.
And the thing with lunar eclipses too, they illuminate, they shine a light, they reveal.
Mm.
So I mean, this is the general horoscope, guys, but maybe it's like you find out a partner isn't as honest as you thought they were going to be, or and that could be business. Business is it's just like love relationships where you trust someone, and yeah, some things get shown that you didn't think were going to be
Yeah.
there.
And I think also confronting, and this goes with what you were saying about that Chiron Mercury, I think confronting any people pleasing habits you have and codependency in relationships and learning, the opposite side of this lunar eclipse is the sun in Aries. So learning to advocate for your needs, your desires, and to put yourself first, even if that's uncomfortable and it makes other people uncomfortable.
Yeah. And I think on a global level as well, I mean, with North Node and Aries before this started this year, it's just more exacerbation of war. and conflict. Mars is the ruler of Aries. Mars is the god of war and can bring that. And that's our direction. And I can see that as well too. I mean, yeah, that's popped off since this node cycle started in July of 2023. So I definitely think this eclipse is going to really exacerbate it even more globally.
I think that's an important call out because the last eclipse we had in Libra was a solar eclipse in Libra, a south node solar eclipse. And that took place at the beginning of the what's unfolding and the genocide in Gaza and Palestine.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, we can see that. And we have to keep in mind too. So, the Aries Libra eclipse cycle, since it started in July, it's about 18 months. So, this is like an ongoing story. And this particular eclipse, it's seasons. So, it's about 5 to 6 months or so that this eclipse is going to take to really play out. And it's really going to hit cardinal signs
Yeah.
the most. So obviously Aries and Libra, if you have placements, Sun, Moon, Rising, you got Jupiter, Mars, Venus, take a look at that. And Aries, and then Capricorn and Cancer as well. So something to note. And also y'all can take a look at where you have what house it's happening for you as well too.
Absolutely.
But it's just really, it's interesting, this pile-on of Pisces energy. Like, what do you think of in terms of, we've been dealing with a lot of like water related weather things on the East Coast, whether it be New York City or in Florida, West Coast. I know you guys, there's similar stuff. Actually, it's everywhere. So do you feel like this could also exacerbate that? It's in the spring when usually that stuff happens.
Yeah, there's been horrific flooding all throughout the world. And, that's exacerbated by human made climate change. And I think having both of the malefics, the challenging planets, Mars and Saturn, in the sign of Pisces, it can look like spoiled water, unhealthy water. It can look like flooding. I think this summer when we had, I think there was a full moon in Pisces that was conjunct Saturn in Pisces. And I think that was around the time that in Japan they released a bunch of nuclear waste into the
Yep.
ocean.
Mhm.
So, harmful events taking place to marine life, um, ice
Yeah.
sheets melting.
Yep.
Yeah.
This connection, we have sextile with Jupiter and Uranus. I think out of that, the bright side, okay, I don't know what bright side, but the bright side of it is, I think because of these situations happening, there can be some innovation,
Mhm.
some legislation passed to help as well. So not the best,
Absolutely.
but
There's support there.
yeah. So we do have some support there. And yeah. So anything else on that lunar eclipse?
Just that it's a couple days after the astrological new year, and I
Yes.
think a lot of people well, I think a lot of people, a lot of astrologers look to the astrological new year chart to kind of predict, what type of events can we expect for the coming year, and I think it's really telling that kind of baked into this chart is a moon, a waxing moon that's getting ready to peak into an eclipse. So it'll
Yeah.
probably, no surprise, we already said it at the top of the hour, but it will be a big year. It will be a dramatic year full of change. But yeah, I think it's kind of interesting that a lot of what we're seeing in this chart is baked into the solstice chart as well.
Absolutely. So, in terms of just tips for the astrological new year as well, actually, let's get back to the zodiac. What could you tell us? Just how can we, even though this is like a little bit of a rocky start, how can we harness the power of the astrological new year?
Well, Aries energy is all about, I think, letting your inner child kind of guide the way. Aries is the first zodiac sign, and there is like this childlike wonder and curiosity about it. And that's one of the gifts of Aries is they're not afraid to try something and fail and get up again and initiate. And yeah, I think this can be a really great time to just fake it till you make it, pretend, play, invite more fun into your life, and not adopt a beginner's mindset. Like, don't be afraid of failure, because that's really what holds a lot of us back as adults is just the fear of failing in front of people. When in reality, Aries knows that the majority of people aren't even willing to try because they're so fearful of failure. So why do you really care what they think? You might as well just go out there and try it.
That's very Chiron, Aries, eclipse-esque advice.
Mhm.
Yes. Yes, 100%. So with that said, let's get back to the charts. And we've got the solar eclipse,
Mhm.
total eclipse, mind you,
Mhm.
in the sign of Aries. So Aries, what's up? Like
Yeah, this one is pretty intense. It's exactly conjunct Chiron. It's at 19 degrees. And the ruler of this lunation is Saturn conjunct Mars in Pisces. So I don't like this eclipse.
no.
Um, this eclipse frightens me a little bit.
Yeah.
Just on collectively, I think we'll be seeing some pretty intense news around this time. And personally, well, my midheaven is at 19 degrees. So I'm a little more personally nervous about this eclipse. But
Mm,
I think for people who have planets or placements, around 19 degrees of the cardinal signs, this is going to be a moment of frustration, setbacks, feeling like you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, but it is temporary, and I think that's kind of the best way to work with this energy. This isn't a time to push forward, which is so ironic because Aries new moons, it's like go go go, initiate, just try try try. But with that Saturn Mars, I think this is a really important time to listen to your body.
yeah. And also the Venus is in detriment here
Mhm.
in Aries. That's also a little bit worrying to me.
Yep.
And it's in the middle of Mercury retrograde in Aries
Mhm.
as well. And we've got Black Moon Lilith in Virgo in opposition to Mars and Saturn in Pisces. Well, actually, it's more so with Neptune, honestly, but I use
Mhm.
wide words. So it's
Mhm.
yeah. I mean, like we mentioned, war, exacerbation of war. I think this is part of that story as well, 100,000%. I think this is also sudden change. I know eclipses can take some time to play out, but I think this one is like a tinder box. Like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised day of if you all are experiencing what the core of the eclipse is for you, what house, what planet, what angle. Yeah, for me as well. I have this is like midheaven, some other stuff. So
Mhm.
yeah.
I think on a bright side, this is a north node eclipse, so that is a point of influx.
Mm,
And with Chiron there, this could be possibly a new cycle in your healing journey, which means maybe it is triggering and cathartic, but you're also releasing, and maybe it's almost like a new beginning. So maybe you've kind of cleared out and released certain patterns, and this is marking a new cycle.
mm. Yeah. This is marking a new cycle, a new beginning, as you said, with Aries. One thing that just popped into my head, if we think about tarot, of course we have the Emperor, it's Aries, but the Fool card kind of just came to mind, and
Mhm.
the new green beginning energy of that, but he also is about to jump off of a cliff.
Yes.
So
Yes.
so there's that. Let me see if I could, might take me a minute to find it, but here. I'll let you see the Fool card. You can see him like, pop it.
Yeah, he's got the sun behind him, he's feeling great, but he's literally about to fall off a cliff.
Those are rough. And, that was just a little download, but I feel like it's like mixed with Tower,
Mhm.
this eclipse. So I think let me just be positive for a moment as well, too, that it also depends on if it's squaring certain things in your chart, if it's activating a benefic like Jupiter or Venus, you may have a different experience with this as well. It's like, let's just think back to 2020. Not everyone, like, of course, we all collectively were going through the trauma of COVID, but in our own particular lives, some people were growing their business. Some
Mhm.
people were, moving to places that were more aligned with them. They got to work from home. Like, not everyone has the same experience with challenging collective events like this. So take a look at your own chart. If it's squaring certain things, that's something to pay attention to. If it's activating like a malefic, like Saturn, Mars, pay attention to that as well too. But this can also be a moment of, right, like the Fool, like you're entering into a new beginning with your work, a new beginning with a relationship, a new beginning with your life as well too, because even though Venus is not feeling comfortable, Venus is still a part of this story as well too. So maybe there's some discomfort in this new beginning, but it's for the best.
Absolutely, and I
Trying to
think yeah, yeah, and I think stepping deeper into your authenticity, right? Because that's also something that I associate with Aries, and that can be healing. Chiron is there, and Venus going after your desires that are authentic to you.
Mhm. And kind of releasing the old traumas, the gunk. It's like quite a bit of Aries will have some Pisces in their chart. Not every Aries, but it's around. Especially early degree Aries. You may have Mercury, you may have Mars, Saturn, depending on when you're born. But there can be a tinge of holding your Aries back because
Yes.
of the empathy for others, which is really just masked as self-sacrifice and and
Mhm.
addiction or codependency. So it's like some of you may be also releasing the bad habits that have stopped you from truly self-expressing, regardless of your zodiac sign.
Absolutely.
So the next event, we got this. So I put a few aspects that I thought were hot. This isn't a planetary event, but this is more aspect wise. But Jupiter is forming a conjunction with Uranus on April 20th. And I just thought this was really important to note.
This is totally a BFD,
Yeah.
and this happens once every other decade, about every 14 years. Jupiter and Uranus meet up. But what makes this such a big deal is that they haven't met in the sign of Taurus since May of 1941. So this is another
Oh,
one where
shit.
it's really, huh?
I said, oh, shit. We all know what happened back then. Okay. Like,
Yeah, so
not
it's
gonna,
interesting
yeah.
to look back at history and see kind of what were some themes that were going
No.
on.
World War II, everyone.
Yes, spoiler alert, World War II, and there was also Germany launched their first airborne invasion, which was, like, one of the first airborne invasions in military history, so that's, like, some sort of innovation in term of war, right? Like,
Yeah.
we could see that coming up. There was also plutonium was first synthesized, and it was kept secret until after the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and
Mm,
that was involved in the atomic bombs. So,
gosh.
uh, but On the bright side, there was also the first successful treatment using penicillin. So we had some
Mm.
medical innovations. And
Was
this,
polio back then as well too, I think?
oh, probably, yeah.
Yeah. And we also had, well, this is not bright side. This is terrible, but the Holocaust
Yep.
slash genocide
Yep.
that went on back then as well too by the Nazis. So we had that. That was not
Absolutely. Yeah. So this usually Jupiter and Uranus correlate with unexpected, rapid transformation, sometimes discoveries and advancements, but whether they will be wielded by what type of power is what kind of dictates whether that is going to be used for good or bad.
Yeah. And this is Taurus season as well. And when we think about Taurus, of course, there's all like beauty and love and, all that sensual stuff. But Taurus is also like values.
Mhm.
And when we have these heavy hitters in Taurus, it's like people can become very rabid about their values. And we can just think about the Nazis, for instance. I mean, that is a very shadow low expression of the sign of Taurus. And if I'm not mistaken, Hitler was a Taurus sun.
Yeah.
So it's a very intense protection of values. And then also basically they were doing what they were doing to quote unquote protect the Reich's financial interests and the German people's financial interests. Taurus also rules over money and our material finances and values as well. So that also is going to be exacerbated. We not only have the genocide going on in Gaza present day, but in Congo, there's genocides going on all over the world,
Sudan. Yep.
all over the world. Sudan, and I think that unfortunately Jupiter not only brings luck and abundance,
Mm-hmm.
but Jupiter also can exacerbate
Yep.
challenging things
100%.
and expand them. So we've got that going on as well too. So I think we're going to see people really rapidly on all sides championing their values and what they believe to be true and kind of bulldozing over other people to get it,
Absolutely.
which is it's scary to think about.
It will be a big day. I
Yeah.
think especially once the moon enters Taurus and traces over those steps, which will probably be like a week and a half later. And then when the moon opposes that aspect, when it's in Scorpio, which will be maybe like 3 or 4 days after this, we'll really start to see some big themes come through. And I'm also kind of worried about the environment, or what does this mean for nature? Taurus is associated with the natural world and the environment. And so, on one hand, maybe we see some major climate crisis, devastating events. Or maybe we see a landmark, let's be positive. Maybe we see a landmark ruling for climate change and making a major, a commitment towards saving Earth, because Earth is very unhappy right now.
Yes. Yeah. Taurus also rules over the natural world and quite literally Earth. And yeah, it's our sign, of course. But that, I think, also kind of going back to the eclipse, it's like there's going to be just things that are going to really trigger that need for the innovation. Like, I mean, the demise of humanity, I think, is going to trigger the need for things to suddenly change or for innovation to happen. And I think also in terms of the global economy, respect to the American economy as well. I mean, I think things have been rocky, and it's like every 5 minutes we're on the brink of a shutdown. That movie Leave the World Behind came out, and there's like rumblings of like, oh, we're gonna have a cyber attack and things like that. Like Uranus rules over that side of life, like
Technology.
technology. I mean, do you think that, and I don't know if it's like full on cyber attack, but our systems and our technology we might deal with just some compromise happening in that area.
Yeah, I think definitely given the fact that at the time of this conjunction, Saturn, Mars, and Neptune are all co-present and essentially conjunct one another, which means very, very close to each other in the sky.
Mm.
That that looks like deception. That looks like that's a difficult pileup of planets together. So it shouldn't go unnoticed that it's happening at the same time of this conjunction. And we had a lot of rapid developments take place technologically back in May of 1941. We had the launch of Z3, which was the world's first programmable, fully automatic digital computer, which blew my mind when I read that. I was like, in 1941, there was a computer? What?
That's wild. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So if you think about that, who knows what kind of what's already being actively developed, right? And will probably be released around this time.
Mm. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Just more development. I think there will be more innovation with AI, like you're saying. We had ChatGPT amongst just a plethora. Everything's going AI, and there's like Mid Journey is another one, and that's also interesting in terms of creative fields because Taurus rules over that as well. It's like there's just rumblings of conversations of like, is this going to replace artists and writers? And we had the writer's strike this past year and the Hollywood strike. That's just something to think about. I don't know if I really have any opinions on it quite yet because we're so early in the AI game. But I think that, like with, say, the calculator or the internet or iPhones, like with every innovation, it just ups the ante in a positive way. Like even us being able to use this chart, like
Yep.
back then they did it by hand. It's like
Totally.
I can't even imagine, like I can do it, but I can't even imagine doing this for every chart that I need to do. All it's doing is it's speeding up our analysis and allowing us to kind of really get out what we want to the collective much faster. So I think it may help humanity to have these things. But there needs to be regulation, of course.
Of course. And Uranus is a planet of unpredictability. So there's going to be amazing advancements and there's going to be things that are probably horrific and destructive. And
Mm.
that's the duality of life. And again, like it's all dependent on who is wielding the power and what are their motivations and intentions.
Yeah. So it's a pretty heavy conjunction here. I mean, usually conjunctions, they're like, they happen, but it depends on the planets. So this is why I brought this particular one up. Like, for instance, we had, it was January 2020. We had that big conjunction in Capricorn. It's like now this is another one that we all should pay close attention to.
Yeah.
So not too soon after this, we've got Jupiter moving out of Taurus and into the sign of Gemini. And
Mhm.
Jupiter is actually not so comfy. Jupiter is in detriment in the sign of Gemini. And the last time we had Jupiter in Gemini was 2012. This is a 12-year transit. So everyone think back to that time. Of course, we're in a different time frame, different aspects, all of that, but you can kind of see some of the similar themes that you
Mhm.
experienced back then.
Yeah. And I think Jupiter will be answering to Mercury throughout its time in Gemini. So Mercury retrogrades are going to be more impactful. We'll probably see some of the more intense manifestations of Jupiter and Gemini during Mercury retrograde periods when it's going a little haywire. But I also think so it was June 2012 through June 2013, and that was the time that, like, I just had started my Instagram. I was, like, making the transition from Facebook and uploading a giant album with, like, 100 photos of me sitting in my living room every night, right? Like, what we used to do, and so I would be curious what's happening with Instagram around this time because I feel like this is when people were really hopping on.
Yeah.
and making it the platform that it is today.
Interesting. Yeah. I remember 2012 was like, yeah, that was back when it was different filters.
Yeah.
Like
Valencia, that was my favorite.
I think Valencia was mine as well too. I like that one. But it's really interesting though, because there's just so much going on with those networks now. You know, like we have Threads now that just came out, X, that whole debacle with what was formerly known as Twitter. Facebook is just not existent, in my opinion. I mean, no hate, no shade, but like, I literally don't go on it.
Yep.
Maybe it's me. Could there be, I also have seen rumblings actually of people kind of going back to like blogging and kind of taking back the power instead of relying on these social media networks in terms of owning their own audience and traffic and owning their voice and what they want to say, because things are also still very much, you get taken down for saying certain things. I'm
Yeah,
not
you get
the word
censored.
for it. Yeah, that's it. That's the word for it.
And the algorithm, yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yes, censorship. That's another one as well too. So I think as a rebuttal against that, a lot of people may be going off platform or focusing their attention on building their own little ecosystem outside of these networks, because at the end of the day, we do rely on them. If you use Instagram or use TikTok as your main community, you're relying on, if it goes away tomorrow, everything you built goes away. It's like that structure, I think. And this also goes along with Pluto and Aquarius, because Jupiter is going to be trine Pluto and Aquarius. I think even though it's not great for those platforms, it's great for the collective to move away from these restricted platforms.
Yeah, and this was the last time we saw a major transition from Facebook to Instagram. So who's to say, what's next? There's probably going to be some new form of connectivity. Gemini is the planet of disseminating information, sharing information, learning, absorbing, dialogue. So, yeah, I would not be surprised if there's an emergence of a new type of social media that's like a worthy competitor to what we are interfacing with now.
Yeah, and maybe one that's more independent,
Mhm.
or yeah, like you not post what you want, but like yeah, like it's like you're independent within that ecosystem.
Yep.
And it really interesting what happened. Speaking of ChatGPT, it was ChatGPT. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if you heard about this, but the founder was ousted by the board that
Mhm.
was brought in, and
Yep.
basically everyone was like, "No, we're not doing that,"
Mhm.
and they all quit, and we're like, "We're going to Microsoft," and then they changed their tune. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that in media, and a lot of these bigger companies that basically have been they've just gotten so big and so powerful, but people will begin taking their power back in that world as well too.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Big
and I think
changes.
also like a change in how we see influencers, which we can also kind of start to see with people. Just a lot of people don't care as much about these bigger influencers, like I don't know, like Kim Kardashian. I think around
Mhm.
2012 is not when I don't know, she got bigger around then. I can't,
Mhm. Mm.
I should have looked this up. Maybe we're going to see more authenticity, or people that are offering knowledge or value or things that are actually going to help elevate humanity. I'm not saying I'm trying to downgrade what she does, but I'm just saying that a lot of that is going to change. That methodology of just like, let me flaunt my wealth, spend, brand deals for just being. It's more going to be about how are you changing the world? How are you helping others? And I think that's along the lines with the Pluto and Aquarius transit as well too.
Yeah. I think that will be really interesting to watch.
I also wanted to talk about Barack Obama had his second term in 2012. We are coming up on an election year next year in America. I don't have any commentary for anyone on who's going to win. I haven't even looked.
Mhm.
it's far more complicated of an analysis than you all may think. So I don't want to really have us comment on that, but I just want to bring up that now we're entering into a new election year. That is going to be like a big, just a big topic. And I really think that the conflict in Israel and Palestine is also going to be, if not getting larger and involving more parties and more countries, it's not going to get much better. And I hate to say that. And I also want to say that there was a big attack and violence going on in 2020 that I read as well, or 2012, excuse me, the last Jupiter cycle that we experienced as well. So I'm not saying like history is repeating itself, but with this Jupiter and Gemini cycle, I think that we're going to see it intensify even more.
Yes. I think two other things that are important to note about Jupiter's time in Gemini. The first, that it will be forming a square with Neptune, a whole sign square, but eventually a closer square as it moves throughout the sign. And that feels like misinformation. And
Mm.
because Jupiter is in detriment in Gemini, Jupiter is a planet of excess and exaggeration. Feels like there will be a prevalence, an overwhelming amount of fake news and
Yeah.
misinformation. And people might struggle more with their discernment around their sources and where they're getting their news. So there could be some sort of big shift with the media as well around that time. And the other thing I want to note is that when Jupiter first enters Gemini, we're going to want to pay attention to what's going on here. And you talking about wars and, the escalation and the possibility is what made me think of this, because in the United States birth chart, we have Uranus in Gemini. And so
Oh,
Jupiter is essentially tracing over those steps and giving us a precursor as to what's to come when Uranus enters Gemini, which will be, I think, in like a year or two after this. And every time that Uranus has been in Gemini, the United States has been involved in a global war.
yeah.
So
Yeah. We're not saying World War III, but
read between the lines.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just got chills actually. What's wild is I said this in a past podcast episode or YouTube video, what have you. So, like a week before October 7th, I was having dinner with a fellow astro pal. And she was like, "Oh, what do you think, about next year or the next couple years?" And I'm like, I mean, I'm not saying World War III, but I don't think that the US is on a great trajectory. And then October 7th, the terrorist attacks, the Hamas attack happened. And then we all know what's going on right now, and the killing of thousands of innocent women and children in Palestine, in Gaza, as a retaliation of that. And I literally was like, okay, I can't believe I was just saying this. And then my friend, I won't name names or anything, but my friend was like, "Oh, I don't know," like I was being dramatic. And then I was like,
Yeah.
after October 7th. It was literally the week before it had happened. And to everyone listening as well too, I think that in general war is horrific. I'm a child of an immigrant from Freetown, Sierra Leone, and in 1992 there was a genocide that took place in Sierra Leone. There's genocides that have taken place in Africa for decades that are not talked about on mainstream news. There's one going on right now. So I am just not a proponent of conflict on any side. And I think that we all need to, as a globe, if we don't start to work together and realize that we are all one, and that these patriarchal structures, including religion, are not really who we are going to end in a trajectory of just, self annihilation. And that's just my message about it. And
Right.
it's not good for anyone. So I
Yeah.
just wanted to say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jupiter and Gemini, another thing also, I mentioned this on a recent interview I did about travel, because Jupiter rules over the globe and travel. And this is another reason why we're talking about global war or the exacerbation of it. We may be feeling restriction because 2020 we had Jupiter in detriment, but it was in fall, but it was in Capricorn.
Mm-hmm.
So we're now seeing Jupiter back in an uncomfortable position. So we're going to feel some restriction as well too. And you mentioned something. I don't know if you want to talk about your theory on why.
Well, the last time Jupiter was in Gemini, we did have another outbreak of bird flu, and Gemini is an air sign. So it is possible that there could be some sort of airborne virus again. And, during COVID, we had the North Node in Gemini. So there could be some sort of correlation with airborne diseases kind of popping up during that time as well.
So something to pay attention to, everyone.
Yeah.
Gemini rules over the lungs,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that could be something that pops up. And also, it's an air sign.
Mm-hmm.
We got flight and travel, things like
Yep.
that. So it may also, I also said this, like you may have to fill out more forms. There may be more red tape to go through to go to other countries, to travel internationally. There may be certain airspaces that are restricted, especially for Americans. I know the EU, it's not a huge, super high tax, but now, or not a tax, but a visa. Now, Americans, I think starting next year, we're going to be required to go through a little bit of red tape to get in. And I know South Africa, it's like a really high fee now for as an American to go there. So those examples, like I think there may be more and more countries that have some red
Interesting.
tape getting into as Jupiter moves into Gemini.
Mm.
All right, so moving on, we've got Black Moon Lilith, the mean calculation, moving into Libra. So for everyone, if you have Libra placements, look at where you have Libra in your chart. And it's funny I mentioned Kim Kardashian because she's actually a natal Black Moon Lilith in Libra and also Libra. And I think Jupiter as well too. So there might be some revisitation. If you have Black Moon Lilith in Libra, this if it's your return, this happens every 9 years. Revisit the themes around power, control, abuse, patriarchal oppression within relationships. And this can be, it depends on your chart, but this can be those power dynamics coming up for a lot of people, and ways in which you may have acted in those ways in relationships. So there's that shadow side of it as well too. I think more people, P. Diddy was an example I gave earlier in the podcast, but there's other men that are being on trial and exposed. But I think Black Moon Lilith and Libra is going to encourage more people to come out and to kind of shine a light on, because we've got the eclipses in Libra also happening as well too, shining a light on these power dynamics that have oppressed not only the feminine, but have oppressed humanity. And relationships are how we navigate the world. So I really think that, yeah, we're really in for some intensity when it comes to that during that transit. It's a 9 months. 9 months we're going to experience that.
And so this would have been back in 2015 was the last time, 9 years ago? Okay.
Oh
So
gosh, thinking about that for myself, I'm like, I mentioned this in my book, but I was in a pretty, yeah, not fun power dynamic relationship wise. How about you?
Yep.
You as well?
Not a healthy one, I'll say that.
Oh,
Yeah.
T. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not just about like love relationships as well too. Again, depends on your chart, but this can be family relationships, can be your boss, this can be your neighbors. This can be, yeah, a lot of different dynamics. Your relationship with outside world, if you're a Libra ascendant, with other people. So I think it's important, kind of like with Pluto in Aquarius, take a look at, okay, what's the shadows? What are
Mhm.
the unresolved things that are going to come up for me? And how can I empower myself to not take that shit anymore?
Right.
Basically, like that's what, like I just went through my Black Moon Lilith return. And yeah, some of the same shadows subtly were coming back into my field. And I handled them in a different way. And of course, I launched my book.
Mhm.
No coincidence there, but
Yeah.
I handled them in a different way than I would have 9 years ago.
Right.
I probably would
Right.
have went home and cried and thought I was, less than and and internalized it. But instead, I empower myself and I'm like, no, fuck, fuck you. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not gonna take that shit anymore. So a lot of you are really gonna, especially if you have heavy cardinal, Libra, Aries, Capricorn, Cancer, you're gonna feel that.
Okay. Fascinating. I'm gonna have to go back into my 2015 and see what was going on.
Yeah, 2015. So that's wild. I do the math and then I don't think about it. And you just said that. And I was like, oh wait, my own life. So moving on from that, we've got Mars forming a conjunction with Uranus and Taurus. And I want to bring this up, even though it's Mars, it's a faster moving planet. We've got the heavy hitter Uranus involved with this. And I feel like it's going to spark even more the story that starts during the Jupiter Uranus conjunction. But what's your opinion on that?
Well, yeah, so the Mars is gonna come through and trace over the steps of that Jupiter Uranus conjunction, and so we could be seeing some action, if there was some discovery or something created around that time, it could be initiated around this time. It could be, Mars is a planet of war and anger and aggression. So there could be some sort of malefic or difficult or challenging expression for sure. Together, like those planets just scream accident prone. This is um, a lot of energy, volatile energy, repressed rage pouring out of someone. I think the last time that Mars and Uranus were together was August 1st of 2022, and it was also conjunct the North Node. So you want to look back at the beginning of August and what was going on in your life around that time. And then globally, which was kind of interesting, the time before that was on January 19th, 2021. And that was, I think, Biden's inauguration. So
Oh,
his storyline might be tied up into this
hmm.
somehow.
Yeah. Oh, so this isn't a past Mars Uranus conjunction, but this is the last one of the last times that Mars was in Taurus. It was like the day that Mars entered into Taurus. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the insurrection happened.
It was at the anaretic degree of Aries. It was 29 degrees of Aries. And I think later that day it entered Taurus or the following day. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not. This isn't. It's not the same aspect or anything, but it's again going back to that energy of Taurus and the shadow side of like bulldozing over others to champion your values and what you want and what you think is right to do. So I think, yeah, I think that might,
Unhealthy power,
yeah, yeah, unhealthy
explosions.
power because
It,
Mars
and,
is not feeling hot in this sign.
and this is an explosive combination. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we did see some major shifts and disasters globally with the environment and climate change, or some sort of like literal explosions.
Yeah, and we've got, even though this is the moon changes every 2.5 days, but that particular day, the moon will be in Scorpio as well.
It's also a big earthquake aspect.
Oh, interesting. Well, that has been happening very frequently every time I look on the news.
Yeah.
somewhere has experienced it. So yeah, that's going to be interesting one to watch.
Mm-hmm.
So as we head into the fall, we've got another lunar eclipse. And of course, I didn't put the zodiac sign up on the screen. But this one is going to be the first one in the sign of Pisces.
Yes.
So interesting, right?
We haven't had a lunar eclipse in Pisces since September of 2016. So you'll want to think back to what was unfolding in your life around that time. Um, this lunar eclipse is ruled by Jupiter in Gemini, which is forming a square with the eclipse and Neptune.
Ouch.
So that also feels very much like misinformation, spread of um, amorphous news, paranoid thoughts, feelings just really getting amplified. Pisces is a zodiac sign that I associate with like surrender and letting go and closing out cycles. So there could be some form of loss associated with this eclipse, especially with it so close to Neptune.
Yeah. Going back to what you're saying about a flu or disease or something affecting the lungs with travel, this is vibing with that. With Neptune rules over like infections, sickness, hospitals, or Pisces as well. So
Yeah.
we got that in the mix. Yeah.
I also took a note that Pluto will be back in Capricorn and it's at 29 degrees, which is the anaretic degree. And I don't know if you noticed this, but this last time around when Pluto was hovering at 29 degrees, it was like unbearable for me. Like I could just
Mhm.
feel the an anaretic degree for any astro newbies out there is like a crisis point. It's like the final degree before a planet changes signs. And so the energy gets like really ramped up. And so I think we're also going to definitely feel some of that plutonic energy. And the last time Pluto was at 29 degrees and 46 seconds is going to be January 13th and 14th of 2024. So we might have some themes tied in from that time period pulled into this eclipse as well.
Yes. Yes. I forgot to mention that Pluto moves back into Capricorn before the eclipse on September 2nd for this is the last time ever, right? Yeah, in our
Yep.
lifetime. So it's only for a couple months. But yes, we're going to be going back and 29 degrees is also like, it's like the final cleanup
Yep.
as well too. So I think a lot of you outside of the world and politics and all of that in your own personal lives, it's like going back and cleaning up that last final gunk. And
In
we've
your
got,
Capricorn house.
yeah, and in the Pisces as well. I think this is like a lunar eclipse that can, we can experience some loss personally. Depends on what area of life this is. I don't want to alarm anyone or stress anyone out, but I mean, this is the truth of what's going on with this eclipse. And I think also it's like healthcare, hospitals, just the things that Pisces rules, like the ocean, as we were saying earlier in the broadcast. What are some other things like spirituality?
Mm-hmm.
We've seen. I mean,
Illusion.
there's always solutions. There's always kinds of all these kinds of call outs going on all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think not just in like in the metaphysical, spiritual, astrological community, but in terms of religions, because there's been years of call outs from like the Catholic Church, this and that. But I think there's going to be some truths that of past illusions as well in those particular organized religions. Like Scientology was another one that went through a call out. Like there's tons of them. So I think this eclipse is going to reveal some more of that. And we're slowly but surely exiting the age of Pisces. So I think this lunar eclipse is giving that vibe where it's like a final cleanup of that illusion that a lot of us have been under in terms of organized religions
Mm-hmm.
for millennia,
Mm-hmm.
not more.
Yeah.
So this is a pretty big eclipse.
This will definitely be one to watch.
Yeah. And if you have Pisces placements, Virgo, Gemini, and Sag,
Mm-hmm.
y'all are on deck.
You're the main characters.
You are. Yeah. And I just want to also comment because I've seen some commentary that those are the signs that are going to be the luckiest next year. I don't. I'm
Mm.
going to say like it depends on your chart or Jupiter because Jupiter is not feeling so hot. Depends on your chart. But it's gonna be a mixed bag. There's gonna be some wins, I think. I don't know if it's like, oh, the luckiest this year, but there's gonna be some wins, but there's gonna be a lot of uncomfortable life changes.
Yeah, those are like very clickbaity posts
Yeah.
on TikTok and stuff, I think people are forgetting that Saturn is moving through a mutable sign. So, sure, Jupiter is in there, but do you think Jupiter square Saturn is cute? That's an excess or growth of struggle and challenge. So, no, I don't think that those are just going to be the four luckiest signs. It absolutely, like you said, is going to be dependent on everybody's chart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're not doing that clickbait here. Just clarifying that, everyone.
Yeah.
Okay. So moving on. So now we're back in Pluto in Capricorn for a little bit, and we have the solar annular eclipse in October. And that we are going back to Libra. So,
Oh,
yeah,
it's conjunct Black Moon Lilith.
yeah, everyone.
Oh my gosh, and Mercury.
Not looking too hot for Kim Kardashian in particular, but I'm going to do a separate video on that. Because you know I love celeb.
Ooh, yes, the hot goss.
This is like hot goss for her. Let me tell you. Not to like segue into someone else, but yeah.
Mhm,
So yes, this is a South Node solar eclipse. And I mean, solar eclipses they're considered malefic. Like
mhm,
they can be pretty jarring changes that happen, like someone getting eclipsed out of your life or you getting eclipsed, something changes and getting removed. But that's essentially what, to me, a solar eclipse with the South Node is there's something that's going to get removed and there can be a power struggle with it.
yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and name this my least favorite eclipse
Yeah.
of the year,
Yeah.
and that's because the Sun and Mars are both in fall, which means they're in positions of struggle. Venus is in detriment. The ruler of the eclipse is Venus, which is, struggling in Scorpio. It's averse, which means that those planets in Libra can't even see it. So there's no sense of support between them. And that pile up of planets in Libra is forming a near exact square with Mars in Cancer. And Mars in Cancer
I'm
can
like
be,
dying. This is really bad, guys.
right? Is
Yeah.
my least favorite one for sure. And Mars in Cancer is because it is in detriment or in fall, it its expressions of anger and Martian qualities can be really intense and amplified and over the top. So
Mm.
globally, I would see this as a very intense time. Personally, if you have cardinal placements, especially around these degrees, just prioritize regulating your nervous system as necessary. I think this will be kind of definitely an intense eclipse.
Oh my gosh. Sorry, I'm ahead of my hands for people who aren't watching. I'm because I have Libra and Cancer placements. But with that said, yes, Libras, you're the main character in this
Mhm.
eclipse. Aries, yeah, and Cancer and Cap. So again, cardinal signs. And Pluto's back in Cap.
Pluto's in Cap. Final tour.
So I know it's a wide orb, but I'm a wide orb girl, and this is interacting for me.
Yeah,
So
it's a whole sign square. That's not cute. Let's be real.
no, it's really not. And the benefics are all, like you said, in debility, like
Mhm.
not feeling good. So we're receiving very little help with this eclipse. So a
Yeah.
lot of massive change for everyone, depending on where this is in your chart.
Mhm.
Yeah. Relationships, that's a theme. You as an individual, we got Aries. Yes, emotional reactions. And then I think on a global scale, this is also confirming our analysis of exacerbation of global conflict and
Mm.
war. I mean, Aries may be war, but Libra is the treaty.
Yep. And there's a
So
loss, right? Because it's the South Node. There's some sort of release. And I th- I mean, you would know way better than I, but that Mercury Lilith conjunction
I don't know. Yeah. Sorry.
that feels, I'm no expert at all in Lilith. I'm just entering the waters after reading your book, but that feels like some sort of dark taboo news regarding themes of justice, equity, um, yeah, or the shadow sides of no peace, right?
Mhm. And Venus is Libra's ruler is in Scorpio, the sign of chaos, conflict, death, rebirth. Yeah. So,
And it's going on to connect with Saturn and Mars. And sure, in like a trine, which is best case scenario, but it's still Saturn and Mars, which are the two most challenging planets. So,
yeah.
yeah, I think this will be a difficult time.
Yeah. And it's like about a 6-month window
Mhm.
that so as we get into 2025, like that transition from fall to 2025, we're going to get into that Mars retrograde is
Mhm.
not going to be that great. Sorry guys.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So, but on the bright side, the reason why I love astrology and also just being so open and honest about the ways in which these planetary events really do look like they're going to manifest and unfold on Earth is because you can prepare yourself to the best of your ability. So, the week leading up to this eclipse, don't overbook yourself. Say no, even if you want to say yes. Like, do proactively protect your time and your energy and your boundaries so you can move through this period as gracefully and compassionately with yourself as possible.
100%. What are some like from your book, what are some ways that people can ground their nerves and their stress around that time?
Mm. Well, some of my favorite ways to do that is through EFT tapping. So that's like a somatic practice that really just reconnects you with your body and brings you back into the present moment. I think cold plunges, like I've been doing these ocean plunges that really regulate your nervous system and again bring you back into your body. Um, Collecting tonali, that's from ancient Mesoamerica. The Mexica used to, obviously worship the sun deity and go into the sun multiple times a day. And tonali was like your soul, your life force energy, and kind of collect it, just collect the sun's rays. All of these things can really bring you back into your body. Grounding exercises, simple, putting your hands and feet on the physical ground. If you can find grass, even better, amazing, but not necessary.
Yeah, I think that's great advice too with that challenging water trine. Tap
Mm,
into the power of water. Totally, I will do that.
mhm. Yeah.
100%. So good luck to everyone during that
You'll
time.
be okay. You've
You'll be
lived through
okay.
many eclipses before.
Yep. We lived through 2020, well, yeah.
Yeah.
So All right. So a few days after things go downhill, I'm just kidding. I'm half kidding. Things go further down the drain. Mars retrograde in Cancer's shadow period starts October 4th.
Yes.
So Mars is already feeling not too hot. And then we're entering into Mars retrograde. And this happens every 2 years. The last one, as a Scorpio, I'm a Mars girl here, wasn't so hot. So warning to the Scorpios and Aries out there. There can be things from the past coming back, but it's been like physical accidents for me.
Yeah. Mhm.
So it's important to watch out during even the shadow period was very hot. It was Mars retrograde in Gemini was the last one.
Mhm. Mhm.
So we're entering to the shadow period. And then the actual Mars retrograde in Leo starts right at the end of the year. So we're going to go, like we said, into 2024 with that challenge.
Mhm.
Yeah. So let me put that on there.
And we did this in 2022. We went into 2023 with a Mars retrograde in Gemini, but Mars retrograde lasts so much longer than Mercury retrograde. So, like you said, the shadow period begins October 4th. The post shadow period doesn't end until May 3rd of 2025.
Oh my
So
God, stop.
basically, from October to May, we're going to be dealing with Mars retrograde energy in our lives. And I do think that the pre shadow period is worse than the post shadow period
Yeah,
because
100%. That's why I warned everyone.
yeah, I know. I'm glad you made that call out because the post shadow period is kind of like where you're doing the cleanup and you're, what how you want to move forward. You're aware. And maybe it's uncomfortable still and maybe you're setting boundaries and that's not fun or whatever it may be, but you know how you want to move forward. But the pre-shadow period can be messy.
Mhm.
And this retrograde is taking place in the sign of Leo, known for its drama and theatrics.
Mhm.
And then it's moving into Cancer, like we said, which is in its fall. And that is going to be the portion that really kind of makes me a little nervous.
Yeah.
Mars is a planet that is associated with war as well. So,
Yeah.
depending on what's unfolding throughout the year, it I'd be interested to see, what this retrograde does. The last time we had a Mars retrograde in Leo was December of 2009 through March of 2010. So you can think back to that time period in your life. Similar themes and topics will come up, but again, in a different way. Because this time, Mars retrograde in Leo is literally forming an opposition with Pluto and Aquarius. And that's never happened in any of our lifetimes.
Oh my God.
So,
Hear that, everyone? Yes. This is a rare Mars retrograde, honestly. And it's never gonna oppose, well, it's a 20-year transit, so we may experience it, but
Mhm.
this is very rare. What I think is really interesting about this year, because I attribute the strikes, like the creative strikes, to Black Moon Lilith in Leo, and then also we had Venus retrograde
Mhm.
in Leo as well. And those two together, it was just like a lot of rebellion in creativity. And of course, these are different planets that we're talking about, but I think that there may be a continuation of
Mhm.
this in the creative industries and even more of a rebellion and break away from like that influencer model that really started early 2009 2010. There was more
Mhm.
of a rise of like the Instagram influencer blogger, and I think that we're going to have a change in the creative industries because of this retrograde as well. A lot of conflict, fighting of contracts,
Mhm.
some of the abuses of power that I mentioned.
Yeah, I think we'll also see some big shifts for the LGBTQIA plus community. The last time Venus or the last time Mars was retrograde was when the New York Senate voted down the gay marriage bill. So that is interesting. And then you
Oh,
can
wow.
see through Venus retrograde and Leo cycles as well, I think. And I don't know if it's 2015, but one of these past, most recent of the last two Venus retrograde cycles was when same sex marriage became legalized. And that was, I think, when Venus and Leo was connecting with Jupiter in a positive way. We got that like positive news.
Wasn't
But
that Obama that did that as well too?
yeah, yeah.
It's interesting because
So
that's
that
the
must have been
2012,
2015.
2015. Okay. Yeah.
So then, but sometimes you see reversals, right? Depending
Mhm.
on what, so we had Jupiter's support in 2015, but here we have that opposition with Pluto, which is taboo and the underbelly and power and control. And yeah, so I think just paying attention to the rights of the LGBTQIA plus community and what's unfolding in our country is also going to be a major theme.
That also, that Venus, even though that's a short uh transit, that also is giving that as well too. Venus in Aquarius,
Mhm.
totally, which in conjunction with Pluto.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So Mars retrogrades, everyone. Mars also, yes, it's the god of war, but it rules over conflict, action, accidents, physical harm. So, I mean, we hear about mass shootings every 5 minutes in this country and the violence across the world, but Mars retrogrades can exacerbate the aggression that it goes on the planet. And Mars also rules men as well
Yep.
too. They're also the perpetrators of a majority of the violence on the planet. So this is going to affect men in a challenging way as well too. Maybe a lot of them may have to confront some of the patriarchal programming that they've experienced that is not beneficial for the planet. So that's going to be a challenging shadow work period, I think, for a lot of men as well too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's it for the year, everyone.
It's a big year. That's a lot to take in,
It's
a
a
lot to take
lot.
in.
Oh my gosh.
So
And, I really just want to end on this note because, I mean, a lot of I just, and also like just getting off of the Mars retrograde in Leo conversation, and Mars is about being triggered as well, too. I just think that we're in a time where everyone is triggered about everything, honestly. And I think the best way to go into 2024 is with an open heart
mhm.
because we all don't want to add to the violence and the aggression and the conflict that we are all going to be experiencing on a collective level. So I think going into 2024 with that
Mhm.
energy and with the energy of love and understanding of people is really effective. And that's going to help us get through it. Here on Black Moon Lilith Rising, I think that's what's going to help us all get through it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. And lean into your community. Like you said, like Pluto is going into Aquarius. That is a sign of community. Lean into your community for support.
Yeah.
It's what we
And
need as
also,
humans.
to prepare for the year ahead, everyone should pick up a copy of Steph's book, and it's available everywhere, right?
Yeah, wherever you want to find it.
Wherever books are sold. And it's super helpful in navigating the insanity that we are going into, how to pour into yourself, how to work with the year ahead. And I think it's just a super helpful guide. So,
Thank you.
yeah. So, thank you so much for coming on the show, Steph.
Yes, thank you so much for having me and good luck in 2024, everyone.
All right. Thanks for listening, guys. See you on the next
Bye.
one. Bye.